Hello, I'm glad you've come here to hear all about this sparkly, I hope you can see that it sparkles, new sweater pattern of mine that I've just released. It's called the Ghali Sweater and it's inspired by the need to have a colorwork project that never ends, and it almost never ends. But I wanted something a little bit more interesting than just the same thing repeating over and over again. So I've taken the main motif and there are slight variations of it as we repeat it lengthwise. So here you can see the outline is a little bit thinner, then it becomes thicker, and eventually it is completely filled out with the darker color. I'm Zanete. I am the designer behind Zanete Knits, and I have published well over 100 patterns on Ravelry over the last 6 years. I've tried to perfect my top-down seamless constructions so that they result in a great fit, and also always try and add something new and exciting to keep the knitting interesting. In this video, I'll cover the inspiration, the gauge and yarn and needles, as well as sizing, the construction, and all the techniques used in more detail, and some ways you could customize and make it your own. Obviously, the test knitters were all stranded colorwork enthusiasts, so they absolutely loved working on this sweater, and they're very happy with the result because it did deliver on the stranded colorwork part. However, you can probably see that the motif is huge, so it is not necessarily a TV or a social gathering kind of project, because you do need to pay attention, especially at the start where you also have the shaping increases here. But when you get to the body, which is just straight and in the round, and you are getting more familiar with the actual chart, then it is a lot more smooth sailing, and it is so worth it because it looks kind of impressive. If this project sounds like your kind of knitting, then make sure you subscribe to my newsletter, because that is where I announce all the upcoming releases, test calls, and of course offer some subscriber exclusive perks as well. This project was created in collaboration with Artfil, a yarn dyer from Canada who I met at Vogue Knitting Live in January this year, and I was instantly drawn to their yarns because they had a whole wall of very sparkly yarns, and not just that, also the colors were really fantastic. And we started talking about potentially collaborating, and I immediately thought that this would be a great colorwork project, and the rest is history. We all agreed, and I had to choose two colors. I did think that it will be quite intricate, so it was important to have high contrast between the colors, but I spent the longest time trying to decide because of so many great options that were there, and it was a almost agonizing to make this choice, but I'm very, very happy. I think it would have worked also in the other few options of combinations that I had in mind at the time. Basically, pretty much any of those would have worked, but I'm very, very happy with this, and I did not get tired of the project one bit, and I enjoyed it throughout, because you can see the pink is kind of sometimes a little bit darker, sometimes a bit lighter, so it was always exciting to come up upon another fragment of the skein or the yarn cake where the color is a little bit more, it's a little different, so it's not a monotonous knitting experience using this yarn by any means. And yeah, as I mentioned, because I didn't want it to be the same thing over and over again, it is not exactly an all-over color work. It does transition, as you can see, into a solid block of color, which is why I have called this the main color. Most of the sweater is in the darker color. You can't see me because I'm not standing up, but the bottom has the same cut-off part as the sleeve. So I thought of this pink color as sort of a veil that's put over the darker one, and it's got holes in there that lets the darker color come through. So it's a play on a negative space, which is why I call the pink one a contrast color that's on top of the darker color. And for me, it felt that makes sense because I was thinking of the negative space aspect, and because most of the sweater is in the darker color, I called that the main color. But it was a little bit counterintuitive for some of the more seasoned stranded colorwork knitters who are used to the fact that the main color is the one that is kind of in the background and the contrast color is in the foreground. But in this pattern, it's swapped. So just keep that in mind, that we start with the contrast color, the pink one, because it's supposed to be like a veil with lacy holes that let the darker stuff peek through. This is sport weight yarn, so the pattern is written for sport weight yarn, any sport weight, or even if you are a looser knitter, I think some fingering weight yarns, especially single ply that fill out holes, or some fluffier ones will work as well. Anything that gets a 26 stitch by a 32 row gauge, that is in 10 centimeters or 4 inches, and we measure the gauge in stranded colorwork in the round after blocking. I'm using colorways rhubarb and slate. And I will repeat myself, I really do emphasize the need for the contrast to be very high due to the intricate nature of this colorwork motif, and you don't want your work to go to waste. So this isn't necessarily a project for subtle color combinations. You can always go and check out Ravelry and the projects page to see what test knitters have chosen and the results there, to give you an idea of how certain colors would look together. There's really a big variety of options there to give you a good idea. I would probably stay away from variegated yarns, and by variegated yarns I mean yarns that have many colors in one skein and where each color is just a short section, so you can only do a few stitches in that color. I think yarns that are color changing, where the single color is a long section, so you get a whole chunk in one color that slowly transitions into another color, like spin cycle dyed in the wool, for example. Those would work really nicely as long as you pair it with a neutral high contrasting color to because it's already quite a busy pattern. But variegated with quick color changes is probably not the most suited, because it is so busy and it might make the project look messy. Well, if you are going for messy and that's what you find very cool, appealing, then by all means go ahead and you will enjoy working on the project even more. In terms of needles, I use my favorite metallic needles in 3.25 millimeter, and that's US size 3 for the body. I only changed the needle size for the neckband to a smaller one, so 2.75 millimeter or US size 2, to prevent the neckline from stretching out too much and for that neckband to be a little denser. You can also, of course, use the smaller needle for the cuffs and the hem if that is your tradition, or you've done that always. There's no, the pattern doesn't call for it, because in my opinion, especially for oversized sweaters, I'm not looking for that hem to cinch things in, because then I feel like I look like a pumpkin. But I don't know, everyone's different. So if you like a narrower hem, which is perfectly fine, it's a classic look, go for it and change the needle size for the hem as well. Now sizing, it comes in 9 different sizes. I made size 2 and there's quite a lot of recommended positive ease. So it was written to be very comfortable, very flowy. It's 25 to 30 centimeters and that is 10 to 12 inches of positive ease, but it also works with less ease. There were test knits that clearly did not have that much ease and were rather on the fitted side and looked really good too. So it is totally up to you. There's nothing crazy about the shaping or the form that would make it look strange on with less ease. So it's, if you pick a sweater that you feel comfortable in and you want to mimic that, just measure across the circumference at the full bust of that one and compare it to the measurement table to find your size. If you are bustier, so your cap size is larger than C and D and upwards, then I would suggest using your upper bust measurement, that's here around near the armpits, rather than full bust measurement to add your recommended ease. Otherwise your sweater might really be too big for and it might not look very flattering. So the construction and techniques, and this is another top-down sweater. I think I already mentioned the top-down and seamless is my favorite, and as much as possible I love doing top-down because you can just try it on as you go and make sure that it will fit. So let me take you close to all the parts and talk you through the construction and the techniques. So this sweater is worked from the top down. This is the knitting direction, and we start by casting on the stitches around the neckline. But because we actually start near here, and we divide these between a little bit for the front, the sleeves, and the back. And initially we work back and forth flat until along with some increases here for the front and increases here at the section borders for sleeves and front, sleeves and back, until we're ready to join the two fronts together by casting on additional stitches from one front to the other. And from this point onwards, we're working in the round when the fronts are joined. I'm using the twisted lifted increases, which is the reason why this raglan line looks quite decorative, because of those twisted legs on both sides. But if that is a little too much, because there's already a lot going on and you are not in the mood to learn a new technique, if this is new to you, you are very welcome to substitute whichever increase method you like. It can be the very default make one left and make one right. I would suggest that for a neat look you stick to an increase that has a left and right leaning direction, so maybe not knit front and back because that doesn't really have those two options. But if you have an increase method that does have two distinct lean directions, then you can use that, and as long as you stick to the lean directions that are specified in the pattern. And after it's joined in the round, the rest of the sweater is basically then worked in the round, and all of the color work also happens in the round. So that's why it is only started when we join in the round, to minimize any purling of color work or to deter anyone who might have an issue with that. And after joining in the round, this yoke part here is split into 3 sections. So in the first, and the sections are determined by where the shaping increases are placed. So in the first section, for each size, the length of the section will be different because we need different number of increases on each of the parts. The first section has increases in body as well as the sleeves, and the cadence is every second row. So we increase in one round, We increase in one round and do a plain round following that, etc. And then the second section is we have increases in body and sleeves still, but except the body part, we increase in every round because we are increasing more rapidly to make enough stitches for the chest circumference with the desired ease, but we don't have a lot of length left to avoid a very deep yoke, so we are increasing in the body more rapidly. But for sleeves, we still just increase every second round, so that will be a little bit more focus requiring there. And finally, for some sizes, there's also a third section where we now have enough stitches in the sleeve part, but we still need some more for the body. So in this section, we just increase in the body, still keeping the same every round. So that's how the yoke part is split up. And you will notice that we also start the chart, and you can see that the actual chart motif is huge. It's actually this whole bit here, with some of it missing on the corner because we don't have enough stitches. So, well, I like it's actually it's situated so that the end of a chart repeat and the start of another one is at the center of each section. So this is actually where the pattern repeat breaks, and you'll see the same is true for sleeve. We also have the same part here. This is where one chart repeat ends and the next one starts. So because the stitch counts are ever changing, we keep increasing. There isn't always enough stitches to fit whole repeats. So the pattern will specify the beginning of round marker will be here at the between the sleeve and the back, and it will specify to which chart stitch to start with. So you'll start with somewhere in the middle of the chart, work to the middle of the body part, and then you'll start another repeat, and it will also not end at the end of the repeat. It'll just end when you run out of stitches and you need to do the raglan increases. So for each body part, it will have a different starting stitch, and that starting stitch will keep changing as we add more stitches. We get more and more of the area to fit in the chart. So the stitch will actually move back by one. So if you started with 37, then the next time will be 36, 35. After every increase, you get one more stitch to include in the charted area. And for some sizes, you will eventually fit a whole repeat and will have to start a new one. And for the sleeves, we might not even get to that point because it's a much narrower circumference. And for that reason, it is quite helpful to either print the chart and draw little lines in the chart for your size where you start for each body part. So for the back and front, it will be one line that's kind of zigzagging up, and for the sleeves, it will be another line. Or if you are like me and you use knitting apps such as Knit Companion, you can also use the annotation feature to scribble those lines on the chart through in a digital way. But for me, that was something I couldn't keep track of the chart otherwise, so I highly recommend you do that. And probably something that I forgot to mention is that when we join in the round, be careful where you have the beginning of round marker. You do join in the round, we knit to the first raglan line, and to avoid to have the beginning of round at the front of the sweater, we also knit across the first sleeve to place the beginning of round marker between the sleeve and the back seam, so that anything beginning of round related is sitting at the back. Right, so we follow the chart and we follow the shaping increases to the point where the yoke is complete, and it is now time to separate the body and the sleeves. So we still work in the round and we work across the body when we get to the sleeves, we place the stitches on hold, and we also cast on additional stitches here at the underarm before joining the back and the front. And because we're working with 2 strands, we can actually use the long tail cast on, a cast on that uses 2 strands, to make sure we carry both yarns across this part, because we'll again need both yarns to continue the back. Another thing that we also establish at this point is this fake seam that separates the front and the back, which basically acts as the break in the pattern, because the stitch count, the chart repeat is so huge. It goes from here to here, and we can't, there's no way we can ensure that full repeats will fit in the circumference that we need for each size, because it just, the interval of the sizes would be too big. So that's why we're not letting the chart repeat dictate how wide our sweater is. And so there is this natural break that separates the front and the back. So again, you'll have a stitch number of the chart specified, where you need to start the chart for the front and the back. But that one, there's no shaping anymore, so it will stay constant on both sides, and it should be smooth sailing. You will also notice that the chart isn't just repeated lengthwise. The first time we introduced these motifs, it's just a pure bare outline. There's minimal of this darker color, which is then later a little bit more. You see these outlines are a little thicker than these ones. And then finally, the last time we repeat it in the chart, we actually have them filled. And eventually we get to the point of that we run out of chart, or there's actually an option where I've specified that if you want to have an all over color work, you don't really like the sudden cutoff here, and you want it to be smooth all over without any kind of color transitions or main color appearing more, you have a set of rows in this chart that you could just then repeat lengthwise as many times as necessary, completely omitting that color work motif, which is very filled with the main color. And the hem is very simple, 2x2 a rib with a just a classical pass stitch over bind off. I like to keep the hem on the same size needles as the main fabric because I don't really like cinching, especially in an oversized sweater like this. But if you're used to more narrower and denser hems, by all means you can change the needle size for the hem to a smaller one. After we finish the body, we return to the sleeves. Well, in fact, you can start the sleeves at any point. After separation, if you get bored of working on the body, the sleeves are slightly different because we need to pick up stitches here along the underarm and join those with the live stitches working the chart row that we did at the separation. And again, we'll have the stitch numbers specified. And then after that, as we have more stitches, we can include more of the chart. This time there will be a more pronounced seam here at the center of the sleeve because we have the decreases, the sleeve tapering decreases, and those are led by this, there's 2 knit stitches surrounding or enclosing this purl seam here. And the opposite of the yoke, this time we will be shifting the color work starting stitch 1 stitch forward instead of backward as we are decreasing. So we have less and less stitches in the chart to work. Again, it goes as the same for the body. If you want an all over color work sleeve without this main color block at the end, you can again repeat this chart motif from row 37 to 96, I believe. I mean, it's specified in the pattern. I don't recall for the top of my head, but there is a set of rows you could just do on the repeat until you reach your desired length before the hem. And the hem is exactly the same. Oh, sorry, the cuffs is exactly the same as the hem. And last but not least, and again, you can probably add the neckband at any point after you have done a little bit of the yoke or after sleeve separation, because you might be worried that it's very wide and you don't know if it's going to fit. So to put your mind at ease, by all means, add the neckband to see how much fabric it will add on each side of the neckline here, and I'm sure that you will be your worries will be addressed after that right away. So we just pick up stitches here along the neckline, the cast on stitches, as well as the ones that we worked here vertically. And to adjust the neck circumference, we also do a little bit of decreases, along with ensuring that we end up with a multiple of 4s, because we're working a 2x2 rib here. So we're working then joining this picked up stitches in the round, working the decrease round, and then a 2x2 rib to double the desired height. We then fold the neckband in and we join the live stitches with a picked up stitch from the base of the neckband and knit those together and bind them off at the same time. Either we pick all of these stitches up on a spare needle and then do a 3 needle bind off, or you could do a 1 by 1, one at a time. So as soon as you get to a live stitch, pick one up, knit together, bind off, and then pick up the next one, whichever method you prefer. So the possible modifications and customizations. As it is top down, it's very easy to then adjust the length of the body and the sleeves as well. Of course, you can make it short sleeve. I think I saw at least one that was short sleeve, which looks great. And you can make it cropped or make it into a dress as well if you like. You could add increases and decreases along the side seams to add waist shaping, because it's quite intuitive to do that. Of course, I didn't include that in the pattern as it's quite a comfortable design with lots of positive ease, so shaping doesn't really make sense. But if you are making a dress, then you might want to include some shaping to accommodate for the different circumferences of the hips and the bust and the chest. Another modification, or it's actually an option that is included in the pattern, is if when I first made the sweater and I showed it to some people, they said, "Oh, that the cutoff here was totally unexpected." They thought that it would continue all over color work throughout. So after the fact, after my original veil idea had been implemented, I also added an option for people who want to have just a plain old all over color work sweater. So there is a section of the chart that you can just then use on repeat instead of working the full chart once. As I have done in my sample, you can work the full chart to row 96 or something and then restart from row 37 on repeat for as many times as you need to. That will then result in you not having these filled motifs here, because we are eliminating that last one. And it's also got that special kind of shapes here at the bottom, so that it's not just a sharp cutoff, it's more shapy. But if you want an all over color work, then you'll just repeat those specified rows in the pattern and you can stop anywhere you like, mid pattern, mid motif, to start your hem. So don't feel like you have to complete a repeat or complete the chart. If you feel that maybe your row gauge is slightly off and bigger and you are reaching the desired length a lot sooner before the chart even completes. So yeah, you can stop at any point and it won't take away from the look. You can also do different hem and cuffs, especially if you're doing an all over color work. You might not want to do them in this color, but be more in line with what's happening here near the neckline. You can change the pattern that's used. It doesn't have to be 2x2 rib. If you are making a fitter one, maybe it's more elegant for you to use a 1x1 twisted rib or just a little bit of a seed stitch hem and cuffs. So yes, that's the last thing on each part that you can do, and you can customize it to what you like. And the same goes with the neckband, which is part of the reason why I love adding it almost the last, because you can look at how the rest of the sweater is and decide what you want to do with the neck. I think that this would also have worked very well with a turtleneck, and it would have made it even more cozy. And it would also just as well have worked with a little bit of a, for example, pink I-cord bind off. If you don't like things close to your neck and would prefer the neckline to be a little wider, you wouldn't even need to go down a needle size. There's that line of decreases that you can completely round of decreases here in the neckline to make it a multiples of 4 that you can completely eliminate if you are a fan of wider necklines. So yeah, that's the way to go about it and make it your own. Those are your options. If you are intrigued to make this almost all over or all over stranded colorwork top-down raglan sweater, then the link to the pattern is in the description. And if you haven't already, then go ahead and subscribe to my newsletter so you won't miss any future updates on patterns like this and others. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.